All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Welcome, everyone. If you're studying medical laboratory technology, medical laboratory science, or if you're just gearing up for your board exams, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're stepping up to the whiteboard to master one of the true, fundamental tools in clinical diagnostics, the ubiquitous lavender-top tube. We're going to break down exactly what this tube does, how it works, and why literally every single step of handling it matters to patient care.
So, let's start with a little thought experiment. That purple tube in the blood collection tray looks incredibly simple, right? It's just a piece of plastic with a colored stopper. But what exactly is inside it? And why is it that using the wrong tube, or even just filling it incorrectly, can completely alter a patient's laboratory result? The biochemistry hidden inside this little tube is actually fascinating, and honestly, misunderstanding it is a major source of pre-analytical errors in the lab.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to progress step by step through the lavender-top tube, the chemistry of chelation, phlebotomy and collection rules, specimen errors, a quick clinical case on platelet clumping, and finally, we'll wrap it all up with some high-yield MLT exam points.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the lavender-top tube, fundamentals and formulations.
The secret sauce here is EDTA. Now, that's a mouthful, but it stands for ethylene diamine tetraacetic acid. Basically, it's an anticoagulant that permanently preserves blood cells. Before EDTA became the standard, trying to examine blood cells under a microscope was a real headache. Cells would deteriorate rapidly, they'd clump, they'd lyse, or just totally change shape. But EDTA changed the game. It gives laboratories a specimen where the cells remain incredibly stable for hours. Because it perfectly preserves cellular morphology, it is the absolute gold standard for automated hematology analyzers running complete blood counts, as well as for those immunohematology tests in the blood bank, like your ABO grouping and cross-matching.
Now, interestingly, not all EDTA tubes are exactly the same. Clinical labs primarily rely on two main formulations, K2 EDTA and K3 EDTA. K2 EDTA is a dipotassium salt, and it's typically spray-coated right onto the inner walls of plastic tubes. This is actually the preferred formulation for most hematology tests, mostly because it has a lower hyperosmolarity. In plain English, it means it has a minimal impact on the size and shape of the blood cells. K3 EDTA, on the other hand, is a tripotassium salt, traditionally prepared as a liquid fill inside glass tubes. While they both do a great job preventing clotting, the K2 version really is the modern standard for keeping cell morphology perfectly intact.
Moving right along to Section 2, the chemistry of chelation, or how we go about shutting down coagulation.
I want you to really think about this for a second. Why doesn't this tube clot? What specific element of the body's coagulation cascade are we actually targeting here? Well, the answer lies in what I like to call the molecular claw. You see, EDTA prevents blood clotting through a process called chelation, which is just the chemical binding of metal ions. EDTA's structure literally acts like a tiny claw. It has these 4 fingers, which are 4 acetic acid groups, that reach out, grab onto divalent calcium ions, and hold them incredibly tight from multiple angles. And remember, calcium is a totally critical cofactor. Multiple steps in the clotting process absolutely require calcium ions to activate clotting factors and build that fibrin mesh. So when this molecular claw removes calcium from the equation, it's like yanking the spark plugs out of an engine. The entire coagulation cascade just shuts completely down.
And that brings up a super important comparison, irreversible versus reversible binding. The binding of calcium by EDTA is, for all intents and purposes, irreversible under standard analytical conditions. It locks that calcium away permanently. Now that's fantastic if you just want to count cells, but it's completely useless if you want to test the patient's clotting ability later on. Contrast that with sodium citrate. That's the additive in your light blue top tubes. Sodium citrate binds calcium reversibly. That means the laboratory can intentionally add exogenous calcium back to the specimen to kickstart coagulation testing, like a PT or an APT.
All right, Section 3, phlebotomy and collection rules. Let's talk about preventing those pesky pre-analytical errors.
When we look at the official CLSI recommended order of draw for venipuncture, we see it's specifically designed to prioritize tubes with the highest potential for cross-contamination. We always start with blood cultures to guarantee sterility. Then comes light blue, followed by red or gold, then green, and then, sitting right there in the 5th position, is our lavender EDTA tube, followed finally by gray. Notice where EDTA is placed. It's way down the line, very late in the sequence.
So let's test your instincts on this.
What happens if a phlebotomist makes a simple mistake and draws the EDTA tube before the light blue coagulation tube or the serum tubes?
The consequence is contamination, and it's a big deal. Think back to that molecular claw. If even a microscopic drop of EDTA carries over on the phlebotomy needle into a light blue tube, it goes straight to work binding the calcium in that new tube. So when the lab tries to run a PT or APTT, the test will be falsely prolonged, or it might not clot at all, because the EDTA stole the calcium needed to run the test. On top of that, since we mostly use potassium EDTA salts, cross-contamination into a serum tube will trigger a massive, completely artificial spike in the patient's potassium levels. We call that pseudo-hyperkalemia. At the same time, it falsely tanks their calcium levels. You can imagine how easily that could lead a doctor to a misdiagnosis.
On to Section 4, Specimen Errors and Rejections. Let's dig into why ratio and mixing matter so much. EDTA tubes demand a highly specific blood-to-anticoagulant ratio. It's a real Goldilocks situation. If you underfill the tube, the excess EDTA creates this osmotic gradient that literally sucks water right out of the cells. This cell shrinkage falsely lowers the mean corpuscular volume, or MCV. Conversely, if you overfill the tube, you end up diluting the EDTA. Suddenly, you don't have enough of that molecular claw to trap all the calcium, and microclots start to form. And since automated counters simply cannot process clotted specimens, that means an automatic rejection and the patient has to be redrawn. To avoid those frustrating rejections, you just need to follow a few precise steps. First up, draw the blood exactly to the marked fill line so you maintain that perfect ratio. Second, the second you finish the collection, invert the tube 8 to 10 times. You gotta mix it gently to ensure the EDTA coated on the tube walls mixes thoroughly with the blood. Third, whatever you do, do not shake it vigorously like a cocktail shaker. Rough handling causes red blood cells to rupture. That's hemolysis. And fourth, store the specimen at room temperature. It sounds weird, but refrigeration can actually activate platelets and totally mess up your cell counts.
All right, Section 5. Time to play detective with a clinical case investigating platelet clumping.
Imagine this. A patient's CBC runs through the automated analyzer, and it flags a platelet count of 45,000 per microliter. Now, that is extremely low, but you check the patient's chart, and they have absolutely zero clinical signs of severe thrombocytopenia, no unexplained bruising, no petechiae. As a medical laboratory technologist, would you just hit verify and send that result to the doctor immediately?
The answer is absolutely, unequivocally, no. You have to consider EDTA-induced pseudothrombocytopenia. In a small percentage of patients, the EDTA chemical itself actually triggers their platelets to aggregate or clump together. When that sample zips through the automated cell counter, the machine's lasers or impedance counters totally miss these massive clumps, or worse, misclassify them as white blood cells. The end result? A falsely low platelet count. A sharp technologist knows this requires further investigation, usually pulling a peripheral blood smear and looking under the microscope manually for those platelet clumps before ever releasing that result.
Everything a microbiologist needs in one app: lab tools, calculators, microbiology updates, and study resources. Download it from the link in the description.
Let's bring it home with Section 6, our rapid review of MLT high-yield exam points.
Okay, quickfire, here is your rapid review. Additive, EDTA, usually the K2 formulation, spray-dried in plastic. Mechanism, irreversible calcium chelation. Remember that molecular claw? Top tests, CBCs, hemoglobin A1C, and blood bank cross-matching. CLSI order of draw, it sits in the 5th spot, right after heparin and before gray. Mixing, 8 to 10 gentle inversions immediately after drawing. Out-of-order error, draw it too early and you get falsely elevated potassium and infinitely prolonged PT and APTs. Underfilling causes osmotic shifts, cell shrinkage, and a low MCV. Overfilling dilutes the EDTA, leading to microclots and rejection. The classic bench artifact you must watch out for is EDTA-induced platelet clumping or pseudothrombocytopenia. And finally, storage. Always keep it at room temperature.
And that perfectly wraps up our whiteboard explainer on the lavender-top tube. You now know exactly what it does, how it works, and why every single step of handling it matters to the integrity of your patient's results. If this explainer helped you master this fundamental laboratory tool, be sure to subscribe and follow for more MLT lessons, laboratory techniques, hematology,
clinical chemistry, and exam-focused content. Keep studying hard, and I will see you in the next explainer. Until then, ask yourself, what other hidden chemical reactions might be secretly altering your test results right now?